when you're gone, 94%, there was a survey done, it was a Forbes survey, and there was 3,000 people they interviewed. And when they asked people, what does leaving a legacy mean to you? 94% responded that it's a life well lived.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
And the definition of a life well lived is that you have friends and people who loved you and you've created memories with them.
Hello, I'm Erin Marcus, founder and CEO of Conquer Your Business, and I want to welcome you to Ready Yet? If all you needed was a step-by-step plan of what to do, you could buy a book on how to succeed and you would be all set. But here's the rub. You'll never do what it takes until you become the person it takes to do it. The Ready Yet podcast is dedicated to those who are ready to become the person who succeeds, ready to become the person who steps into more, and ready to become the best version of themselves. In the I'm Ready interview series, join me for inspiring conversations with people who figured out who they needed to be in order to achieve their dreams, and were brave enough to be that person. Hello, welcome to this episode of the Ready Yet podcast. I'm excited for my guest today, Linda Schwader, because it was one of those people, like, I met you when I was in Dallas. I was speaking at an event. We had a bunch of mutual friends there. And it was one of those things, like, you look across, I've been saying for years now, look across a crowded Zoom room, but this was like, look across a crowded real room, which is almost unheard of these days. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is one of my people. And then we had a great conversation, and I'm excited for you to share your story for two main reasons, lots of many reasons, but two main reasons. One, you like sales, and I like a woman who likes sales. And two, you've had, what you shared with me, some recent self-discoveries and some passion-driven changes that I think are just exciting. So I can't wait for you to share not only what they are, but how they came about and how you were able to find what you really wanted to do. So before we dive into all that, why don't you give everybody a more official introduction to who you are and what you do?
Well, you said about sales.
Yeah.
So way back in the ancient history, I paid my way through college selling books door to door. So I didn't plan on doing sales. I just needed to pay for college. And that taught me how to sell. Mm-hmm. And that's a skill that no matter what you do in life, you must know how to do. I mean, you can be a dentist, you have to know how to sell.
Oh my gosh, so true.
Absolutely. And so I've learned how to sell. Then I started teaching, training, managing, motivating salespeople. I started teaching. I went to Tony Robbins seminar and I learned all about goals, because in sales, you'd have the sales goals, but he teaches like the umbrella of life goals. So I came back and started teaching that to my sales teams. Their sales went up exponentially. And the per person average was like the top in the company.
Nice.
And so I just really started teaching people, salespeople particularly. I didn't like teaching them how to sell. I like teaching them, the people that knew how to sell, I say they had their foot on the gas and foot on the brake at the same time. Mm-hmm. So how do they release the brake so that they can go faster?
Well, and what I love about what you're saying and what you're describing as having happened is, and from what I know of Tony Robbins, and it's really, sales is so much about not the transaction in front of you, but what it all means, right? You learned how to sell to pay for college. It had a bigger driver, and that gets us out of our own way. And then with more teaching and what you were doing with your sales teams, it became about, what's the purpose? What's the overarching goal beyond the conversation you're having at the moment right in front of you? And
Absolutely.
when it's bigger than just you, it's exciting.
Exactly. Salespeople that now, instead of just, I have to hit this quota or this goal, what it was is, this is what's going to mean for my family. This is a vision I have for, I want to do for my family or my future or whatever it is. So it became a bigger vision, purpose, and that kind of thing.
Well, sure, because just paying the bills, while certainly a requirement, is not very exciting as a motivator.
No,
No.
no. It's like losing weight. We all know how we should do things, but it doesn't motivate us to do it. We have to know why we do something. And so when I would teach this, I would say, you have to know what you want. I have a triangle. And if most people say, what I want to get a new house, I want to go on a trip, whatever. And then they immediately go to, how do I get there?
Right.
But I really emphasize, when you know what you want, then the next question is, why do you want it?
Right.
And how badly do you want it? Because, you can kind of want it, but you can't, that doesn't mean you change your behavior.
And that's so true, because we all know tons and tons of people who, I want to win the lottery. They want a million different things, but nobody's actually willing to do the work to, aside buying the lottery tickets, to do there's this big disconnect between the, what do I want, and doing the things to get you there. And I think the gap is from not having the connection.
Well, and so you talked about a big life change. So during COVID, my grandson was with me. He was supposed to be here for, we thought COVID was going to be a week.
Right? Yeah, I remember.
My daughter is in San Antonio, and we have a grandson. He's 10 years, well, he's 8 at the time. He's 10 now. And she said, he's not going to have school next week. Can he go home with you for a week? Well, sure, he can come home with me for a week. 11 weeks later, he's still with me, but it was a joy and pleasure to have him here. And I realized during that time that I was really good at what I did. And my former mentor told me I'd forgotten more about sales than most people would ever know. I could roll out of bed and do what I did, but I had lost the sizzle, the joy. I say my grandson woke up in love with life, and I woke up in like with life.
Yes, you were still doing the life, but it wasn't quite as exciting.
It just, I thought, I want some of that. So we had the time. It was the beginning. And like I said, he was here, and I had to do distance learning for him because now he's 2nd grade and I have to do that. So while he was doing that kind of thing, then I was doing mine. And I was like going through some old files and what really brought me joy. And I decided that I was going to switch gears. Well, they say pivot. I heard a former WNBA player. She says, when you pivot, you have to keep one foot. You can't, if you move that foot, you're traveling.
Right. You're not pivoting anymore.
You're not pivoting. So you have to keep your one foot planted, and then you go in, different directions. So my foot was still planted on the whole mindset part of things, but the pivot. Yeah. So I still
what you were doing in sales. Really, the change you knew how to make was really in the mindset approach to your content.
Right. It wasn't teaching them the techniques or that kind of thing. And so I decided, I took a course on how to do online courses, and it didn't start. I interviewed about 25 to 30, what I call my ideal client. And they are high achieving women. Yep. And the high achieving women, they basically, asked them the questions, and I came up with a program that I thought that they might like. Well, they did like it. They loved it, in fact. And the next program was filled 80% by referrals from the first. And I didn't know what to name it. And I'm talking about it. And somebody says, well, what is the name? I said, I don't know. She says, well, so I started describing it. And then I said, well, you know what? It's like, people want to leave a legacy, but you got to live your legacy. And that became the name of my program. Live a legacy before you leave a legacy.
Love it. So can I back you up for 1 second? Because you said something that, yes, you forgot more about sales than most people can, but you glossed right over it. And it's one of the biggest mistakes I watch entrepreneurs make over and over and over and over again. You did not create your course in a bubble. No. You talked to a lot of people that you felt were your ideal client to find out exactly what it is that they needed and wanted. And then you provided it.
Yes.
And I call it, you did the work before the work.
Right.
You did the prep work. You did the work that comes before going out there and doing the work. And people miss that step over and over and over again.
Right.
And that's why you were able to fill the second round with 80% referrals from the first round. And of course, the delivery of it.
Well, it's the delivery. And then also because having been in sales and knowing how to ask for referrals,
Yes.
and, actually it kind of fell in my lap because one of the women said, I want to sit through the second one and I'll pay for it again. And so then I thought, I have an idea. If you refer 2 people that join the program, you can sit through free as a graduate.
Right. Alumni.
You're the alumni, you're the expert. And she's like, okay. So she's actually referred 4 people, you know what I mean? In other words, and then somebody else referred, that kind of thing. And so it's knowing, it's asking, it's not imposing.
It's asking. The way that I describe it, it's inviting, not chasing.
Yes.
It's asking, not imposing. It's inviting, not chasing.
And if they like what they got out of it, and then the second thing about asking for referrals, you ask them when they're hot about it. Like they just said, man, I just love that program. Well, can you think of somebody else that might like it? You don't wait 3 weeks. Now the program's done. They forgot, now they've moved on to something else. Say, oh, by the way, can you think of somebody that might be interested in the program?
Well, because not only is it the wrong time, it creates a really weird energy for how you follow up with them.
Right.
Because now it's a very transactional follow-up instead of a relationship follow-up.
Right.
So fast forward back to where you were, because I freaking love the idea of this program of living a legacy before you leave a legacy. When you and I talked before, I shared the story with you about how I was told at some point that my cousin's other grandma, we used to call her my nana, was she was passing, and my mom had said, hey, open your calendar, we're going to have to go to a funeral. And I said, why are we waiting to go to a funeral? Why don't we go see her now? She doesn't care if we're at the funeral. And which got us on this whole conversation of living a legacy, not just leaving a legacy.
Precisely, it's how you live. And so interestingly enough, I had there's a networking group here in Dallas called the Women's Society. And they had a meeting last night and they asked me to speak. And the title was Leaving a Legacy Through the Story of You. And so I again have the philosophy, you can't leave a legacy that you haven't lived.
Yeah.
And we talked about leaving a legacy. Yes, you want to have things in order like the wills and estates and, that kind of stuff. That's not what I talk about at all.
No, that's kind of like your version of sales. That's the step-by-step. That's somebody else can teach that knows that, what I'm teaching, and I showed them last night, is when you're gone, 94%, there was a survey done, it was a Forbes survey, and there was 3,000 people they interviewed. And when they asked people, what does leaving a legacy mean to you? 94% responded that it's a life well lived. Oh, wow. Interesting.
And the definition of a life well lived is that you have friends and people who loved you and you've created memories with them. Because now you're gone and you have the memories. Now, I told them some tangible things they can do to keep those memories alive. And they are, that I taught, is not number one, photos, because I knew somebody that she died and she was always taking the photos and they didn't have any.
And there was no photos of her. Yes, that's very common with women. You hear that a lot.
Secondly, in the world we live in now, where everybody takes pictures with their phone and they put it on Facebook, then you're gone, but you don't have actual pictures because they're all whatever. Digital. And so then the other one is video and interviews that you could do. You could do an interview with a recording or video. We did that with my dad and his 2 brothers, and it was about a 2-hour interview. This is over 20 years ago. And 6 months later, the youngest brother died of an aneurysm.
Oh, wow. So
we have that video of them telling about their childhood and the stories of their childhood and stuff. So that's another thing.
Well, and I know my boyfriend's father passed away about 1.5 years ago, and he had been ill before that. And then a fall escalated how quickly difficulties were happening. And we talk all the time about we would have asked him more questions had we known that was going to happen.
Right.
And I think because so much of this sneaks up on us, it's kind of like the frog in water. It gets worse slowly. And when you're immersed in the caregiving of things, you don't realize the change.
Right.
And I would have asked him more questions had I realized the time limit.
Yeah, you don't know. And none of us know, really. And the other one is Tony Robbins says that a life worth living is worth journaling about. And so journaling, and of the group, of all the women that were sitting there, only one journals every day. And I'm like, you get the gold star, because that's like, I journal, but I just journal. I want to set myself up for success. And if I said, I'm going to journal every day, I'd be failing most of the time.
It took me a lot of what I call false starts. I've been pretty consistent for 2 years now, but it's not, interestingly enough, now that you say that, it's me kind of self-coaching as I grow my business, not necessarily talking about my experiences.
Well, journaling can be anything.
Yeah.
I know somebody that she draws pictures because she's very visual, And so, I mean, journaling, there's no set. It's very personal.
I'm not doing it wrong, is what you're telling me.
There's no wrong. And even if, you do it and today, and then 3 weeks later, you do it again, and then you do it for 4 days in a row, and then you don't do, that's okay too. It's just, whatever you document is something that's going to live beyond you. And, and some people don't think they're a good writer or whatever. And it's really not about that. So those are just some things that I talked about last night. And I'm going to, since we're talking about this,
Yes.
I'm going to tell you the quote that I ended with. It says, one day you will wake up and there won't be any more time to do the things you've always wanted. Do it now.
Yes.
Paulo Coelho is who wrote that.
I hope you're enjoying this episode of the Ready Yet podcast. I know I really enjoy having conversations about who you need to be in order to reach new heights. As founder and CEO of Conquer Your Business, I work with my clients at the intersection where what they need to do to succeed meets who they need to be to do it. If you would like to have a conversation about your business, please reach out to me at erin@conqueryourbusiness.com.
Humans, I talk a lot about growing businesses and getting things done and taking action. And human beings have just a really strange relationship with time, because we've all gotten in this habit of talking about how we're so busy. And yet over the last 2 years, there was so much talk about all this time on our hands because we couldn't go anywhere. So how are you so busy and you have all this time on your hands at the same time? And in the day, we think, I'm so busy, I can't get anything done. And yet when we do longer range planning, we figure we have all the time in the world to do things later. And we just don't stay present in any of it.
I think the quote that Tony Robbins has is something like, we
overestimate what we can do in a day and underestimate what we can do in a year.
Yes, something like that.
Yeah.
And so, and time too. One of the words that I stopped saying, because people say, oh, I'm so busy. Who isn't busy?
Everyone's busy.
Everyone's busy. It's just like oh, I'm so busy, I didn't call you back. Okay,
it's the new fine. How are you? Oh, I'm so busy. My response to that is better busy than bored.
Yes. Yeah. So, and but I always know too that when they say, oh, I was so busy, I didn't call you back. No, I wasn't a priority. Is why you didn't call me back. Let's keep it straight here. But anyway, I just think, so I want to just say, when I was doing the program, it started last October. So it's like really 15 months ish. And so I was doing these online programs and we would say what our goals are. And so one of mine was to do a retreat. Years ago, I decided I wanted to do it. I didn't decide. I had the thought.
Right. You had an idea.
Yeah. And it's always in the back of my head. And so in the back of my mind. And so anyway, I verbalized it to the group. And so then as the universe works, a woman named Sherry Rosenthal, who used to work with Don Miguel, the author of 4 Agreements. She did all those retreats and now she has a retreat business. Anyway, she, her information started passing through and I started watching her and listening to her and that kind of thing. Anyway, I put the date on the calendar and said, I'm going to have a retreat. It's coming up January 6th through the 9th. But here's the point. Until I decided, till I put a date on the calendar, and then I said, I'm going to have 10 women at this retreat. So I had a specific goal, maybe 12, but for sure the bottom, I always kind of set goals that way. I always have, my top goal would be this, but my bottom goal is this. I will have 10 people there. And I have 11 registered.
Nice.
And so, with one that could possibly maybe, but it's okay. Right now I'm happy with what it is. And the point I'm making with this retreat is that it was a thought, it was a seed, and now I verbalized it out loud. And then things started happening, showing up. I went to a networking event that I just said, we all had a chance to talk. I stood up and I said, I'm having a retreat. And a woman said, I want more information. Like, I'd never met her before. I didn't know anything about her. And I sent her my information. We had a conversation and she's coming to the retreat.
Well, and you did the thing, one of the things, and it really goes back to your topic. I always talk about it in terms of growing your business, but truthfully, it really is about living a legacy. That we take so much more time to do anything because we don't take the first step. We talk about needing to do something, and so we keep it in the back of our mind. And yours was a bigger idea, so maybe it just needed to percolate till it was the right time. But we do this with a lot of little things too. Instead of just taking care of it, or putting a deadline, or putting the activity on the calendar, instead of taking care of it, we put it on the to-do list.
To-do list. And there is magic in taking baby steps.
Yes.
It's like, even what I was teaching last night, if you have a photo album and you just have a shoebox full of photos and you think, oh, putting those in albums, it's just like such a big project, just take the baby step of sorting through and putting them, throw the ones away.
Right.
Yeah. Maybe throw away the ones you don't like, or,
Right.
It's like anything we do. If you just start doing something,
just do something. And because the overwhelm is what stops us. Overwhelm is one of the fastest ways to just completely stop you in your tracks.
Exactly.
And it doesn't matter how little of a step you need to break it down into. Mm-hmm. But those steps are what, you have to take the action. At some point, you have to actually start doing.
Well, I think what happens too when you start taking action, like even me saying it out loud, then things start showing up because your reticular activating system
starts going, oh, wait a minute. Now that's important.
I was following this woman, Sherry, for years, but I never really read her emails because I wasn't planning on doing a retreat. But now all of a sudden, when I'm doing it, now I follow her stuff. And the same thing also happens, like I know I'm going to have another retreat, maybe 2. I haven't decided that, but for sure another retreat in 2022. I also want to do this global. I want to go international. I the whole COVID thing, I'm kind of hesitant right now to say I'm going to go international in 2022, but I will be going international with my retreats. But it isn't just the retreats. I also learned some things about how I like to interact. I used to do one-on-one coaching. And during the COVID process, I realized that isn't what I want to do anymore. I really like the whole mastermind, group coaching, high level programs like that. And so, everything switched. And part of it is, for a long time in my life, I think a lot of women do this, but I did for sure, is we do things with our head. We should do this. We must do this. Everyone expects us to do this, but we don't take the time to say, does this bring me joy?
Well, and not just this brings me joy, but the trust process, the learning to trust yourself, right, and listening to the intuition and the tidbits and the ideas that you have, instead of stifling them with the stories of that's not the way it works, I'm supposed to do XYZ. I just had a planning meeting, my Wednesday morning meeting with my team about laying out the next year. And it had to percolate for a minute because I'm taking leaps that quote unquote aren't supposed to work. Well, but all my leaps, it's kind of the way I do things. And learning to trust yourself, have some realism. We're not going to be lunatics about it, but have some realism, but trusting yourself that you know what you want, you know how to best do this. And
Right.
it doesn't have to be according to anybody else's.
And you know what? Here's the thing. You take the leap, and if somewhere midair you realize that maybe that's not where you want to land,
Land somewhere else.
You can land somewhere else. And then when you land there, I always say, I heard the other day, they said your headlights only show so far. And when you get there, then you have your headlights show farther,
Oh,
So,
that's a great visual.
yeah. So now you see the leap that you're going to do. You get there and it's like, whoa, this is not far enough, or whoa, I didn't expect you to do that. But
Screw this up, shouldn't have gone that far.
Yeah, to me, that's what makes life exciting. I mean, if I don't even watch movies that are predictable. My husband loves Hallmark movies. I say, Jerry, the first 1 minute of the show,
you know the whole story, right?
You know the whole story. I can't.
That's been my problem with Netflix. The new way to stream, not with the Netflix special where they're like a 13 episode story. I like those. But now that you can binge watch your favorite shows, the formula, when you watch them back to back to back, the formula starts to outshine the story.
Right. And they're predictable. And so in a movie, I like unpredictable. I like to, oh my gosh, that surprised me, because I like that in life. That's why I like meeting new people. Yeah. Last night I met there was one woman that grew up in Bolivia, another one that grew up in Portugal, another one that grew up in Iran. I mean, it's just a networking group of women, but they have backgrounds that are different. I mean, I just love that kind of uniqueness, diversity, because it's not all predictable.
It's not all predictable. And I know that in my former life, in my corporate life, I worked in the long-term care insurance industry. Mm-hmm. And if you want to help prevent dementia, continually have new experiences.
Exactly.
Because it just creates all those new synapses that were not there before. And that, obviously there's genetics and it's not, no, but it's
there's things under our control and things that aren't in our control. So what we have to do is work with what we can control.
All those new experiences create a healthy brain.
Yes.
So if people want to get a hold of you and learn how to live a legacy so that they can leave a legacy and come to your, hopefully, I will keep my fingers crossed for you sooner rather than later, international retreats. I haven't.
Well, as soon as the world opens up, then
the world opens, I'm there. I hear you. Yes. What's the best way that they can get a hold of you?
Okay, so Linda, and that's Linda Schwader, SCHWADER.com is one. And just text me 469-693-4519.
And you're not as we say in this, you're not hiding.
I'm not hiding, not hiding. And, I love to talk to people. I love to meet new people. I love to hear. There's no agenda that I have other than serving people and finding out. If I have one superpower, I would say that it is seeing the potential in people that they don't see in themselves.
Oh, love it.
And so that's why I love working with high achieving women, because they sometimes don't see their own potential. Awesome. They're achieving high because that's just who they are.
It's just what they know how to do. Right. Exactly.
Sometimes there's a superpower in them. Cool. And can I tell you one quick little thing?
Yes.
So we were at the E-Women conference, and there's a woman that came, and she brought her it was the end of the conference. She brought her 4 children, and one was 8 years old. And she wanted to get in a picture that we were taking. We said, sure, come on in. And she walked over. She says, I'm writing a book. She's 8 years old. She says, I'm writing a book. And I said, oh, what's your book on? She says, The 12 Superpowers. And so I just think that's so cool. Is that
if we could just hold on to that, right? If we could just go back to that viewpoint, it would be amazing for all of us.
Anyway, that's how you get a hold of me.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story and spending some time with me. I really do highly encourage everyone to reach out. They will not be sorry.
Yeah, you just, there's a Acuity scheduling. You can,
Make it easy.
It's a get to know session. So that's great.
Awesome.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank
Thank
you.
you so much, Erin. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for joining me on the Ready Yet podcast. I get so motivated by the amazing accomplishments of the remarkable people I meet, and I'm excited to be able to share some of their stories with you. You can find more episodes of Ready Yet at your favorite source for podcasts or at conqueryourbusiness.com. And if you've already decided that you are ready to become the person you need to be to achieve your big goals, feel free to reach out to find out how I can support you in your efforts. Or check out the Work with Erin page on the Conquer Your Business website. I also invite you to share this podcast with anyone you know who loves to learn and be inspired. And if you're so inclined, I'd be absolutely grateful for any reviews you'd like to share as well. Thanks again for joining me. This has been Erin Marcus, hopefully inspiring and helping you to go conquer your big dreams.